Marcus Daniels stood at the edge of Lincoln Park, his weather-beaten cowboy's jacket pulled tight against the October chill. Chicago's skyline glittered in the distance, but Marcus barely noticed. The same skyline had once represented promise. Now it only reminded him of how far he had fallen. 6 years ago, Marcus had been the talk of Dallas, a fourth-round draft pick who'd exceeded all expectations. The wide receiver had become known for his clutch catches in critical moments. Sportscasters called him the miracle worker. His poster hung in kids' bedrooms across Texas. He'd signed a $28 million contract extension just before his 27th birthday, and then he'd lost it all on a single bet. It hadn't started with one bet, of course. It had started small, a few thousand here, a few thousand there. The rush was addictive, more intoxicating than the roar of 80,000 fans. But then came that fateful night in Vegas, the blackjack table, the dealer's knowing smile, the whiskey, the mounting losses, and Marcus's absolute certainty that he could turn it around with one more hand. He'd put everything on the line, his savings, his investments, even taking loans against his future earnings. One card had changed everything. What followed was a blur of headlines, a team suspension, investigations into gambling violations, and finally, the voiding of his contract. His agent dropped him. His so-called friends disappeared. His wife Lisa took their daughter Emma and moved back to her parents' home in Michigan. "You need help, Marcus," Lisa had said, tears streaming down her face as she packed. "Call me when you get it." That was 3 years ago. He'd tried calling, many times. But Lisa had eventually changed her number, and Marcus had eventually stopped trying. The spiral continued downward. Failed comeback attempts, more gambling, more debt, more bridges burned. Until Marcus found himself here in Chicago, a city where no one recognized his face, living out of a cheap motel when he could afford it, and on the streets when he couldn't. Tonight was a couldn't night. He shuffled toward the park bench that had become his bed more nights than he cared to count. His knee ached, an old injury that never healed right because he'd rushed back to the field too soon. A reminder of glory days that now felt like someone else's memories. As Marcus approached his bench, he noticed someone was already there, a small figure huddled under a thin blanket. His first instinct was irritation. This was his spot. But as he got closer, he realized it was just a kid. Couldn't be more than 10 or 11. "Hey," Marcus said, his voice gruffer than he intended. "That's my bench." The child looked up, and Marcus was struck by two things. The kid had a black eye that was swollen nearly shut, and despite this, his gaze was unwavering. "Doesn't have your name on it," the boy replied. Marcus couldn't help but chuckle. The kid had guts. "Fair enough, mind if I sit on the other end?" The boy shrugged and scooted over slightly. Marcus lowered himself onto the bench with a grunt as his knee protested. For a while they sat in silence, two strangers in the night with nowhere else to go. "I'm Marcus," he finally said. The boy hesitated. "I'm Darius." "What happened to your eye, Darius?" The boy turned away. "Nothing." Marcus knew that nothing all too well. It was the same nothing he'd told teammates when asked about the bruises from debt collectors. The same nothing he'd told coaches when asked about his bloodshot eyes after all-night gambling binges. "You got family?" Marcus asked. "Sort of," Darius replied cryptically. "They know you're out here?" Darius pulled his blanket tighter. "They don't care." Marcus nodded slowly. He knew about people not caring too. "You hungry?" Marcus asked, reaching into his jacket pocket and pulling out a slightly squashed granola bar, the last of the food he'd gotten from a shelter yesterday. Darius eyed the bar suspiciously before hunger won out. He snatched it quickly, like it might disappear if he didn't move fast enough. "Thanks," he mumbled through a mouthful. As the boy ate, Marcus noticed his shoes, worn-down basketball sneakers with holes in the toes. But what caught Marcus's attention was that despite being homeless, the kid had carefully tied the laces in a specific pattern that Marcus recognized from his playing days, the way running backs often laced up for ankle support. "You play ball?" Marcus asked, nodding toward the shoes. Something in Darius's face lit up. "Yeah, basketball, football, Whatever's going. I'm good too. Yeah? What position in football? Wide receiver, Darius said proudly. Fastest kid in my school. Was anyway before... He trailed off, but Marcus didn't need him to finish, before whatever had put him on this bench. I used to play wide receiver too, Marcus said. For real? Like, for who? Marcus hesitated. He'd avoided talking about his past for so long. Dallas, he finally said, few years back. Darius's eyes widened. For real? The Cowboys? Wait, Marcus Daniels? The miracle worker? The nickname hit Marcus like a physical blow. He hadn't heard it in years. That was a long time ago, kid. Man, I used to watch your highlights on YouTube. That catch against Philly in the playoffs, that was insane. Despite himself, Marcus felt a flicker of something he hadn't felt in years, pride. What happened to you? Darius asked, with the direct curiosity only children possess. Marcus stared out at the darkened park. Made some bad choices, he said simply. They fell into silence again, but something had shifted. A connection had formed, thin as a thread, but somehow strong. As the night grew colder, Marcus noticed Darius shivering. Here, he said, taking off his prized cowboy's jacket, the last remnant of his former life, and draping it over the boy. I can't take your jacket, Darius protested. Just borrowing it, Marcus insisted. I'll get it back in the morning. Listen, Marcus said, growing serious. This job, it's not much, but it's something. I'll need to find a place to stay. A real place. What about me? The vulnerability in Darius's voice was unmistakable. I'm working on that part, Marcus assured him. But I need to know more about your mom, about the group home, about why you ran. The real story. Darius kicked at a stone on the sidewalk. It's complicated. I've got time. They stopped at a small diner where Marcus splurged on burgers and fries, a celebration of sorts for his new job. Between bites, Darius slowly opened up. His mother had been a nurse before prescription painkillers led to harder drugs. She'd been in and out of rehab, but nothing stuck. Child Services had stepped in 2 years ago, placing Darius in a series of foster homes before the group home. The black eye had come from an older boy at the home, but the staff had turned a blind eye. After months of torment, Darius had run. Have you tried to see your mum recently? Marcus asked. Darius nodded. She's in a facility again. 30-day program. I snuck in to visit last week, but she was out of it. Didn't even recognize me. Marcus's heart ached for the boy. He knew all too well the pain of watching someone you love lose themselves to addiction. What if, Marcus began carefully, we try to help her, and while she's getting better, we figure out a better situation for you? Like what? I don't know yet, but running and hiding isn't a long-term plan, Darius. Trust me, I've tried it. Darius poked at his remaining fries. You really think you can help? I think we can try, Marcus corrected. Together. For the first time since they'd met, Darius looked truly hopeful. Okay. That night they splurged on the motel again, buoyed by the promise of Marcus's new income. As they lay in their respective beds, Darius spoke into the darkness. Hey, Marcus? Yeah? Thanks for everything. Marcus swallowed hard against a sudden tightness in his throat. Get some sleep, kid. We've got a lot to figure out tomorrow. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Marcus took on every hour he could at the community center, coaching, cleaning, even helping with administrative work when they discovered he was good with spreadsheets. He found a small studio apartment that he could just afford with his new income. It wasn't much, a converted storage space above a laundromat with a kitchenette and bathroom, but it was theirs. The landlord had raised an eyebrow at the lack of paperwork for Darius, but hadn't asked too many questions when Marcus paid 2 months' rent in advance. Darius started attending the local middle school. Marcus had fabricated a story about being Darius' uncle and temporary guardian while his mother was in treatment. It wasn't exactly legal, but it got Darius back in a classroom instead of on the streets. But the arrangement was precarious, and both knew it. Any day, someone could start asking the right questions, and their makeshift family could be torn apart. One evening, as they ate a simple dinner of spaghetti and jarred sauce, Marcus broached the subject they'd been dancing around. We need a more permanent solution, he said, for both of us. Darius twirled pasta around his fork. What kind of solution? I've been thinking about what you told me, about your mom. Marcus took a deep breath. I know what she's going through. The addiction, the rehab, the struggle, I've been there. So you got better though, Darius pointed out. I got clean, Marcus corrected. I'm still working on better, Tanta, but I had help. He set down his fork. Tomorrow's your mom's last day in the program, right? Darius nodded. What if we went to see her, offered to help? She's tried before, it never sticks. Maybe this time will be different, if she has the right support. Darius looked skeptical. And what's the right support? Us, Marcus said simply. You, me, a reason to stay clean. And if she doesn't want that? Marcus had asked himself the same question. The truth was he had no guarantees, but he knew one thing for certain. Then we figure something else out, but we try this first. The next day, they took the bus to the rehabilitation center where Darius's mother was completing her program. It was a modest facility in a converted Victorian house on the outskirts of the city. As they approached the entrance, Darius grew increasingly nervous. What if she doesn't want to see me? She's your mom, Marcus said. Of course she wants to see you. But Marcus had his own doubts. He knew all too well how addiction could twist a person's priorities, sever the strongest bonds. At the reception desk, Marcus explained they were there to see Angela Williams. The receptionist made a call, and moments later, a counselor appeared to escort them to a small visiting room. She's finishing up a group session, the counselor explained. She'll be right with you. As they waited, Marcus noticed Darius fidgeting with the zipper of his jacket, the cowboy's jacket that had somehow become his over the past weeks. It's going to be okay, Marcus assured him, though he had no way of knowing that. The door opened and a woman entered. Angela Williams was in her early 30s, with the same deep brown eyes as her son. She was thin, too thin, with dark circles under her eyes, but there was a clarity to her gaze that spoke of recent sobriety. Darius, her voice cracked. Hi, Mum. The reunion was awkward at first. Tentative hugs, halting conversation. Marcus introduced himself simply as a friend who'd been looking out for Darius. They told me you ran away from the group home, Angela said, guilt washing over her face. I've been so worried. I'm okay, Darius assured her. Marcus has been helping me. Angela studied Marcus with understandable suspicion. And how exactly did you two meet? Marcus didn't sugarcoat it. We were both homeless, sharing a park bench. We kind of looked out for each other. Angela's eyes filled with tears. My baby was homeless, she whispered, because of me. Mom, it's not. It is, she interrupted. It is my fault, and I'm so sorry. As they talked, Marcus was struck by Angela's sincerity. She'd been through the cycle of addiction and recovery before, but something felt different this time. There was a weightiness to her remorse, a determination in her voice. I'm getting out today, she explained, going to a halfway house. It's not much, but it's a start. What happens to Darius? Marcus asked. Angela's face fell. They said he has to stay in the system until I can prove I'm stable. At least 6 months of clean drug tests, steady employment, suitable housing. So he goes back to the group home? Marcus couldn't keep the edge from his voice. No, Darius said firmly. I'm not going back there. Angela looked desperately between them. I don't know what else to do. The system failed him, Marcus interrupted. It failed both of you. A heavy silence fell over the room. What if, Marcus began slowly forming the idea as he spoke, we came up with an alternative? Angela and Darius both looked at him expectantly. I have an apartment now, a job. It's not much, but it's stable. What if Darius stays with me while you get back on your feet? Why would you do that? Angela asked, understandably suspicious. You don't even know us. Marcus looked at Darius, this kid who'd somehow become the center of his world in just a few short weeks. I know what it's like to lose everything, he said quietly. And I know what it's like to need a second chance. Over the next hour, they hammered out a plan. Angela would focus on her recovery at the halfway house, getting the help she needed while looking for work. Marcus would continue coaching and working at the community center, providing a stable home for Darius. They would meet with a social worker to try to formalize the arrangement, a temporary guardianship that would keep Darius out of the system while giving Angela time to rebuild. It was a long shot. Marcus had a criminal record from his gambling days. He had no qualifications as a guardian, but it was the best plan they had. As they prepared to leave, Angela pulled Marcus aside. "I know who you are," she said quietly. "Marcus Daniels, the football player." Marcus tensed. His past was rarely recognized as something positive anymore. "Darius used to watch your highlights all the time," she continued. "You were his hero." Marcus didn't know how to respond to that. Hero was the last word he'd used to describe himself. "I don't know why you're helping us," Angela went on, "but thank you for looking after my boy when I couldn't." "He's a good kid," Marcus said simply. "He deserves a shot." As they left the rehabilitation center, Darius was quieter than usual. "You okay?" Marcus asked as they waited for the bus. "Do you think it will work?" Darius asked. "Your plan?" Marcus wanted to offer reassurance, but he wouldn't lie to the kid. "I don't know. There are a lot of hurdles, but we're going to try our hardest." Darius nodded, processing this. "If it doesn't work, if they try to send me back—" "That's not going to happen," Marcus said firmly. "One way or another, we're going to make sure you're safe, I promise." It was a promise Marcus wasn't sure he could keep, but in that moment, he knew he'd do whatever it took to try. The following weeks tested Marcus's resolve in ways he hadn't anticipated. Navigating the labyrinth of social services proved more challenging than breaking through a double-team coverage on fourth down. Their first meeting with a social worker named Ms. Reyes was a stark reality check. "Let me understand this," she said, reviewing their case. "You want temporary guardianship of a minor you met on a park bench while you were both homeless?" Put that way, it did sound absurd. "I know how it sounds," Marcus admitted. "But Darius can't go back to that group home, and his mother needs time to get stable." Ms. Reyes turned to Darius. "Is this what you want?" "Yes, ma'am," Darius replied without hesitation. "Marcus has been good to me, better than anyone else." The social worker sighed. "Unfortunately, what you want and what the system allows aren't always the same thing." She explained the legal hurdles: background checks, home inspections, character references, income verification. Marcus's criminal record, mainly misdemeanors related to gambling debts, wasn't helpful. Neither was his recent homelessness or his limited employment history since his football career ended. "I'll be honest," Ms. Reyes said. "It's a long shot, but I've seen stranger things work out." They left with a stack of paperwork and instructions to return in a week. Meanwhile, the youth football team Marcus coached was thriving. The kids responded to his straightforward teaching style and genuine interest in their development. Darius had become not just a star player, but a leader, helping younger kids master techniques Marcus had taught him. Coach Wilson noticed the change in both of them. "Whatever you're doing with that kid, keep it up," he told Marcus after practice one day. "He's like a different person from when you first brought him in." "He just needed someone to believe in him," Marcus replied. Coach Wilson studied him. Funny how that works both ways, isn't it? The comment stayed with Marcus. In helping Darius, he'd found something he'd been missing since his playing days: purpose. The structure of practice schedules and game plans had replaced the chaos of gambling and homelessness. The responsibility of caring for Darius had pushed away the self-pity that had dominated his life for years. But their fragile new life was balanced on a knife's edge. Any day, the system could decide Marcus wasn't fit to care for Darius. Any day, Angela could relapse. Any day, Marcus's own demons could resurface. And then one day they did. It started innocuously enough. The youth team had made it to the city championship, an achievement that had the whole community center buzzing with excitement. To celebrate reaching the finals, one of the parents had organized a pizza party after their last practice. As the kids devoured slice after slice, the parents mingled. Marcus kept to himself, as usual, until one of the fathers approached him. "Great job with the team, Coach," the man said, extending his hand. "I'm Rick, Joey's dad." "Thanks," Marcus replied. "Joey's a solid linebacker, got good instincts." Listen, a bunch of us are heading to Finnegan's after this to watch the Bears game. You should join us. Marcus tensed. Finnegan's was a sports bar, the kind of place with big screen TVs showing every game, betting lines scrolling across the bottom, and plenty of opportunities to place a friendly wager. I can't, Marcus said. Got plans with Darius. Rick waved dismissively. Bring him along. They've got a game room in the back for the kids. Before Marcus could formulate another excuse, Darius bounded over, pizza sauce rimming his mouth. What's up? He asked. Just inviting Coach to watch the game at Finnegan's, Rick explained. You're welcome too. Darius's eyes lit up. Can we go? Please. Joey said they have the best wings in Chicago. Marcus wanted to say no. Every instinct screamed that it was a bad idea, but the hope in Darius's eyes was impossible to ignore. Just for a little while, Marcus relented. We've got that meeting with Ms. Reyes tomorrow, remember? Need to be fresh for that. Finnegan's was exactly as Marcus had feared, a sensory overload of sports, alcohol, and subtle reminders of his past life. TVs blared from every angle, showing football, basketball, even horse racing. The electronic ping of betting apps sounded from phones around the bar. The kids disappeared into the game room, while the adults settled at a large table with a prime view of the Bears game. Marcus positioned himself with his back to the screens, showing other sports, especially the horse racing. For the first hour it was almost enjoyable. The other parents were friendly. The conversation focused on the kids and the upcoming championship game. Marcus found himself relaxing slightly, nursing a soda while the others had beers. Then Rick leaned over. You want in on our pool? Just $20. Closest to the final score wins the pot. It was such a small thing, just a friendly bet among parents. Nothing like the high-stakes gambling that had destroyed his life. No thanks, Marcus said, more sharply than he intended. Rick looked taken aback. No pressure, man, just thought you might want in on the fun. I don't bet, Marcus said firmly. Not anymore. A flicker of recognition crossed Rick's face. Wait, Marcus Daniels? The wide receiver? Marcus felt the familiar weight of shame settle in his chest. That was a long time ago. But the damage was done. Word spread quickly around the table. Soon everyone was stealing glances at him, whispering behind hands. Didn't you lose like $1 million on one hand of blackjack? One man asked bluntly. 3 million, actually, Marcus corrected, his voice hollow. But who's counting? An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Marcus stood abruptly. I should check on Darius. He escaped to the game room where Darius was engaged in an intense air hockey match with Joey. For a moment, watching the boy's concentration, tongue caught between his teeth, eyes focused on the puck, Marcus felt his anxiety ease. Then Darius looked up and grinned. I'm winning. That's my boy, Marcus said, the words slipping out before he could catch them. Darius beamed, then turned back to the game, missing the emotional impact his smile had on Marcus. My boy. The phrase had felt so natural, so right. But as Marcus returned to the table, he found the adults had moved on to another topic. Betting lines for the next day's games. The conversation swirled with familiar terminology, spreads, over, unders, props, terms that had once been the center of Marcus's world. He tried to tune it out, focusing instead on the game. But when the Bears quarterback threw an interception in the red zone, the collective groan around the table triggered something in Marcus, a memory of similar moments, of thousands of dollars vanishing on a single bad decision by a player. Excuse me, he muttered, heading for the restroom. Inside a stall, Marcus tried to steady his breathing. The familiar itch was back, the craving to place a bet, to feel that rush again. His phone felt heavy in his pocket. It would be so easy to download a betting app, to put just a little money down on the second half. Just enough to feel that high again. Marcus pulled out his phone, his fingers trembling slightly. But instead of a betting app, he found himself opening his photo gallery. There, in a recently taken picture, were Marcus and Darius at the community center, both grinning after a particularly good practice. Next to it was a photo of Angela, Darius, and Marcus during one of their weekly visits. Angela looking healthier, more present, her eyes clear. Marcus stared at the images for a long moment, then put his phone away, splashed cold water on his face, and returned to the table. "Everything okay?" Rick asked. "Yeah," Marcus replied. "Just needed a minute." The craving hadn't disappeared, but it had subsided enough for Marcus to function. He endured another hour, making minimal conversation, before finally announcing it was time for him and Darius to leave. As they walked home in the crisp autumn air, Darius chattered excitedly about the evening, oblivious to Marcus's inner turmoil. "Joey's dad seems cool," Darius remarked. "Did you have fun?" Marcus managed to smile. "Sure, but I'm more focused on our big day tomorrow." Their appointment with Ms. Reyes was scheduled for 10 a.m., potentially a make-or-break moment for their unusual family arrangement. That night, after Darius was asleep, Marcus sat at their small kitchen table staring at his phone. The urge to gamble still hummed beneath his skin, a persistent whisper he couldn't quite silence. Instead of giving in, he dialed a number he hadn't called in years. "Hello?" a groggy voice answered. "Jason, it's Marcus Daniels." There was a pause. "Marcus? Man, it's been, 3 years?" Something like that. Jason had been Marcus's sponsor during his first attempt at recovery, before his relapse and final downward spiral. They'd lost touch after Marcus had stopped attending meetings and stopped returning calls. "You okay?" Jason asked, instantly alert despite the late hour. "No," Marcus admitted. "Had a close call tonight. Wanted to bet again. Almost did." "But you didn't." "Not yet." "That's something," Jason said. "You working the program?" "Not really, but there's this kid. He needs me to stay clean." Marcus explained the situation with Darius, the temporary guardianship they were pursuing, Angela's recovery. "Sounds like you've taken on a lot," Jason observed. "Too much?" "That's not for me to say, but it sounds like you found something worth staying clean for." "I have," Marcus confirmed. "But tonight showed me I'm not as strong as I thought." "No one ever is," Jason said. "That's why we need help. Listen, there's a meeting tomorrow night at St. Mark's, 7 p.m. Why don't you come by? Bring the kid if you need to." Marcus agreed, thanked him, and hung up. The craving had subsided further, replaced by a different feeling, determination. He had too much to lose now. Darius needed him. Angela was counting on him. For once in his life, people were depending on him for something other than catching a football. The next morning they dressed in their best clothes for the meeting with Ms. Reyes, Marcus in slacks and a button-down shirt borrowed from the community center's donation closet, Darius in clean jeans and a collared shirt. "You nervous?" Darius asked as they waited in the reception area of the social services office. "Terrified," Marcus admitted. Darius nodded. "Me too." "Whatever happens," Marcus said, "we'll figure it out. Remember that." Ms. Reyes called them into her office, where she reviewed their paperwork with a neutral expression that revealed nothing of her thoughts. "I've spoken with Angela," she began. "She's doing well in her program, following all protocols. Her counselors report significant progress." Marcus nodded, hopeful. "I've also received the results of your background check," Ms. Reyes continued, her eyes on Marcus. "Several misdemeanors related to gambling debts, no violent offenses, which is a point in your favor." Marcus held his breath. "Your employment is stable, if somewhat unconventional. Coach Wilson speaks very highly of you, says you've transformed the youth program." She closed the file and looked directly at Marcus. "I'll be honest, this arrangement wouldn't be my first choice, but Darius has made it abundantly clear he won't return to the group home, and I believe him. His school reports improved attendance and grades since he's been staying with you, and Angela is committed to regaining custody when she's able." Ms. Reyes sighed. "Under the circumstances, I'm recommending a 3-month temporary guardianship, with bi-weekly check-ins and mandatory counseling for all 3 of you. At the end of those 3 months, we'll reassess based on Angela's progress and Darius's well-being." Marcus could hardly believe what he was hearing. "You're approving it?" "Provisionally," Ms. Reyes emphasized. "One misstep, a missed check-in, a positive drug test for Angela, any evidence of gambling relapse for you, and we reassess immediately. Are we clear?" "Crystal clear," Marcus assured her. As they left the office, Darius was uncharacteristically quiet. "You okay?" Marcus asked. "This is good news." "It's only 3 months," Darius said. "What happens after that?" Marcus put his arm around the boy's shoulders. "We take it one day at a time. That's all any of us can do." That evening, Marcus took Darius to the meeting at St. Mark's. While Darius sat in the back with a book, Marcus listened to stories that mirrored his own. Tales of addiction, rock bottom, and the slow climb back to normalcy. When it came time to share, Marcus surprised himself by standing. "My name is Marcus," he began, "and I'm a compulsive gambler." "Hi, Marcus," the room responded in unison. "I haven't placed a bet in 3 months," he continued. "Last night was the closest I've come to relapsing. I was at a sports bar surrounded by triggers, and all I could think about was placing just one small bet." He glanced back at Darius, who had looked up from his book and was watching intently. "But I didn't," Marcus said, "because for the first time in my life I have something more important than that next bet. I have someone counting on me to be better than I was, and I'm trying, every day, to be worthy of that trust." After the meeting, Jason approached them. "This must be the famous Darius," he said, extending his hand. "Your dad talks about you like you're the second coming of Jerry Rice." Neither Marcus nor Darius corrected the word dad. "I'm not that good," Darius said modestly, "but I'm learning." "From what I hear, you've been teaching Marcus a thing or two as well," Jason replied with a knowing smile. On the walk home, Darius finally spoke about what he'd witnessed. "Is that why you don't bet anymore? Because of what happened to you?" "Partly," Marcus admitted. "But mostly it's because of what could happen to us. To you, to your mum, to everything we're building. I can't risk that." Darius nodded thoughtfully. "Will you always want to? Bet, I mean." Marcus considered the question carefully. "I don't know. They say the addiction never really goes away, but wanting something and choosing it are different things. Every day, I choose not to bet, and some days are harder than others." "Like yesterday?" "Like yesterday," Marcus confirmed. "But I made it through, and tomorrow I'll choose again." As they neared their apartment, Darius looked up at the stars barely visible through Chicago's light pollution. "I'm glad you chose us," he said simply. Marcus felt a lump form in his throat. "Me too, kid. Me too." The day of the Youth Football Championship arrived with perfect fall weather, crisp and clear, the kind of day that made every color seem more vibrant, every sound more distinct. The community center was buzzing with excitement. Parents helped string up banners, kids ran drills with nervous energy, and Coach Wilson moved between groups, offering encouragement and last-minute advice. Marcus found himself in the equipment room, double-checking the game ball's pressure when Coach Wilson joined him. "Team's looking good," the older coach observed. "They've put in the work," Marcus replied. "Win or lose, I'm proud of them." Coach Wilson nodded appreciatively. "You know, when you first showed up here, I had my doubts. Thought you might be another one of those guys passing through, but you proved me wrong." Marcus smiled. "Still proving myself wrong too most days." "That's called growth." Coach Wilson clapped him on the shoulder. "By the way, there's someone here to see you." Marcus followed him out to the field, where Angela was waiting by the bleachers. In the 3 months since she'd entered recovery, her transformation had been remarkable. She'd gained healthy weight, her skin had regained its color, and her eyes were bright and focused. She'd found work as a receptionist at a medical office, a step down from nursing, but a step in the right direction. "Wasn't sure you'd make it," Marcus said, giving her a quick hug. "Wouldn't miss it," Angela replied. "Where's my superstar?" Marcus pointed to where Darius was running routes with some teammates. Angela waved and Darius sprinted over, engulfing his mother in a hug. "You came!" "Of course I did, baby. Got the afternoon off specially." As the three of them stood together, Marcus was struck by how natural it felt, like a real family supporting each other at a milestone moment. The game itself was fiercely competitive. The opposing team from a well-funded program across town had size and experience on their side. By halftime, they were up by 2 touchdowns. In the locker room, Marcus gathered his deflated team. "Listen up," he began. "They're bigger, they're stronger, they've got better equipment and fancier plays, but that's not what wins games." He looked around at the young faces, kids from tough neighborhoods who'd found refuge in this program, just as he and Darius had. What wins games is heart, determination, the willingness to get knocked down and get back up again, to believe in yourself when nobody else does, to fight for the guy next to you. Marcus met Darius's eye. I've been where you are, the underdog, the one everyone counts out. And let me tell you something, there's no feeling in the world like proving them wrong. The kids leaned in, captivated. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go out there and play our game, not their game, our game. Fast, smart, together. One play at a time. And we're going to fight until the final whistle. Win or lose, we do it our way. Together. The second half was a different story. The team played with renewed energy, executing the fundamentals Marcus had drilled into them all season. Slowly, methodically, they clawed their way back. With 2 minutes left, they trailed by 4 points, fourth down on their own 40-yard line. "What's the call, coach?" one of the players asked Marcus. Marcus looked at Darius. "What do you think?" Darius's eyes widened at being consulted. He thought for a moment. "The miracle worker," he said decisively. It was a play they designed together, named after Marcus's old nickname, a complex route combination that required perfect timing and trust between teammates. "You sure?" Marcus asked. "It's risky." "So was me trusting you that first night," Darius replied with a grin. "Worked out pretty well." Marcus couldn't argue with that logic. Miracle worker it is. The play unfolded in slow motion. The snap, the handoff, the reverse, and finally the pass. Darius streaking down the sideline, making his cut at exactly the right moment, hands outstretched. The ball spiraled perfectly through the air, dropping just over the defender's fingertips and into Darius's waiting hands. He turned upfield, evaded one tackler, then another, and finally crossed the goal line as the crowd erupted. The final minute was a blur of defensive stands and clock management. When the final whistle blew, the scoreboard showed a 1-point victory for the community center team. The celebration was chaos, kids jumping, parents cheering, coaches embracing. In the middle of it all, Marcus found Darius, lifting him onto his shoulders as teammates swarmed around them. From his elevated position, Darius spotted his mother in the stands, tears streaming down her face as she applauded wildly. He pointed her out to Marcus, who carried him over to where she stood. As Darius slid down into his mother's arms, Marcus stepped back, watching their embrace. The victory on the field was sweet, but it paled in comparison to this moment, a family rebuilt from the ashes of addiction and despair. Later that evening, after the celebrations had died down, the three of them sat in a booth at a local diner, sharing milkshakes and recounting the game's highlights. "That last play," Angela shook her head in amazement. "Where did that come from?" "Marcus taught me," Darius said proudly. "It's what made him famous. The miracle worker." Marcus chuckled. "Well, a version of it anyway. Your route running made it work." As they talked, Marcus noticed Ms. Reyes enter the diner. She spotted them and came over to their table. "Congratulations on the win," she said. "Word travels fast." "Thanks," Marcus replied, uncertain why she was there. The 3-month review of their guardianship arrangement wasn't scheduled until the following week. Ms. Reyes seemed to read his mind. "Don't worry, this isn't an official visit. I was in the neighborhood and saw you through the window. Thought I'd stop by with some news." She pulled up a chair. "Angela, your counselor submitted a glowing progress report. 6 months of clean drug tests, stable employment, regular participation in support groups." Angela squeezed Darius's hand. "I'm trying." "It shows," Ms. Reyes assured her, "which is why I've recommended accelerating the timeline for reunification." Both Angela and Marcus stared at her in shock. "You mean—" Angela began. "With continued progress and suitable housing, we can begin transitioning Darius back to your care within the next month," Ms. Reyes explained. "Supervised visits at first, then overnights, and eventually full custody, assuming everything continues as it has been." The news hung in the air. It was what they'd been working toward, what should have been a moment of pure joy. But Marcus felt a knot form in his stomach. He'd known this day would come, had actively helped make it happen, but facing the reality of it was different. Darius's expression was similarly complex. happiness for his mother mixed with uncertainty about the change. "What about Marcus?" Darius asked, giving voice to the question hanging over them. Ms. Reyes looked between them. "That would be up to all of you to decide. The legal guardianship would end, but relationships don't have to." After she left, an awkward silence fell over the table. The milkshake sat untouched, melting slowly. "I've been looking at 2-bedroom apartments," Angela finally said, "near the medical office, good school district." "That sounds great," Marcus said automatically, though his heart wasn't in it. "It's only about 15 minutes from the community center," Angela continued. "And your apartment." Marcus looked up, catching her meaning. "Oh?" "I was thinking," Angela said carefully, "that maybe we could work out an arrangement. Darius would live with me, but you'd still be part of his life. Weekend visits, football practices, maybe Sunday dinners. Like a—" Marcus struggled for the right word. "Like a family," Darius supplied. "A weird one, but still a family." Marcus felt the knot in his stomach begin to loosen. "I think I could get on board with that." As they resumed eating their melting milkshakes, Marcus reflected on the strange journey that had brought them to this moment. 6 months ago, he'd been a broken man sleeping on a park bench, drowning in regret and self-pity. And then a homeless kid with a black eye and an attitude had changed everything. 1 year later, Marcus adjusted his tie in the mirror, grimacing at how unfamiliar it felt around his neck. "Remind me why I'm wearing this again?" "Because," Darius called from the next room, "Mom says we have to look nice for the judge." Today was the final hearing to officially terminate Angela's case with Child Protective Services, the last step in a long journey back to normalcy. Marcus had agreed to wear a suit for the occasion, though he'd drawn the line at cutting his hair, which now hung in neat locks past his shoulders. "Joe looked like a real grown-up," Darius teased, appearing in the doorway of Marcus's bedroom. At 13, Darius had shot up several inches, his frame beginning to fill out from regular meals and rigorous football training. He was already fielding interest from elite high school programs across the city. "Very funny," Marcus retorted. "You ready to go?" They left Marcus's apartment, a newer, larger unit in a better neighborhood, made possible by his promotion to head youth coordinator at the community center, and headed to Angela's place to pick her up. The past year had unfolded in ways none of them could have predicted. Angela had excelled in her recovery, eventually securing a position as a medical assistant while working toward reinstating her nursing license. Darius had moved in with her full-time 6 months ago, but spent weekends and many afternoons with Marcus. And Marcus had discovered that coaching suited him far better than playing ever had. He'd found peace in the structured routine of practice schedules and game plans, purpose in mentoring kids who reminded him of himself before things went wrong. Most importantly, he'd remained clean. No gambling, no close calls, just one day at a time with the help of his support group and the family he'd found. Angela was waiting outside her building, looking polished in a simple dress. "You two clean up nice," she said approvingly. "Speak for yourself," Marcus replied with a smile. Their relationship had evolved into something neither could have anticipated. Not quite romance, but more than friendship. A partnership built on shared goals and mutual respect, with Darius at its center. At the courthouse, Ms. Reyes met them with a rare smile. "Big day," she said. "You ready?" The hearing itself was brief and anticlimactic, a judge reviewing paperwork, asking a few questions, and finally declaring the case closed. Angela was officially Darius's legal guardian again, with no supervision or oversight from the state. As they exited the courtroom, Darius whooped loudly, earning a stern look from a passing bailiff. "Sorry," he stage whispered, "just excited." They celebrated with lunch at a nearby restaurant where Marcus raised his water glass in a toast. 2 second chances, he said, and to family, whatever shape it takes. Later that afternoon, they headed to the community center for the youth football team's practice. Darius had graduated to the older division, but still came to help Marcus coach the younger kids. As they set up the equipment, Coach Wilson approached with a man Marcus didn't recognize. "Marcus, got someone here who wants to meet you," Coach Wilson said. "This is Jeff Donaldson, head coach at Westside High." Marcus shook the man's hand. "Nice to meet you." "Likewise," Coach Donaldson replied. "I've been hearing good things about your program here. And about that star receiver you're grooming. He nodded toward Darius. He's got natural talent, Marcus acknowledged, and he works harder than anyone I know. That's what I like to hear, Coach Donaldson said. But actually, I'm not just here about the kid. Word is you've got a pretty good football mind yourself. Marcus raised an eyebrow. I do all right. We're looking for an assistant coach at Westside, someone to work with our receivers, help develop our passing game. Pays better than what you're making here, I'd wager. Marcus was speechless. A high school coaching position was several rungs up the ladder from community center youth coordinator. Think about it, Coach Donaldson said, handing over a business card. Darius would be in our district too. Could be a good fit all around. After he left, Marcus stood holding the card, stunned by the unexpected opportunity. You should take it, Coach Wilson said. You've outgrown us, and that's a good thing. I don't know, Marcus replied. This place gave me a chance when no one else would. And you've more than repaid that debt, Coach Wilson assured him. Besides, you wouldn't be leaving entirely. You could still help out here when you have time. That evening, Marcus discussed the offer with Angela and Darius over dinner at their apartment. It sounds perfect, Angela said. Better pay, more responsibility, and you'd still be working with kids. And I could play for Westside next year, Darius added excitedly. They've got the best program in the city, Marcus chuckled. I see where your priorities are. Seriously, though, Darius pressed, you have to take it. You're too good for just the youth league. Marcus studied the boy who had changed his life so dramatically. You know, a wise kid once told me that sometimes you have to take a chance on people, even when it seems crazy. Sounds like a smart kid, Darius grinned. He has his moments, Marcus conceded. Later, as Marcus prepared to head back to his apartment, Darius walked him to the door. You know, Darius said hesitantly, if you took that job at Westside, you'd be even closer to us. That's true, Marcus acknowledged. And Mom's lease is up in a few months. Marcus raised an eyebrow. What are you getting at, kid? Darius shrugged with feigned nonchalance. Just thinking it might be easier if we all lived in the same place. You know, for carpooling and stuff. Marcus fought back a smile. For carpooling, right. Just something to think about, Darius said. Things are good now, but they could be even better. Standing on the threshold between the apartment and the hallway, Marcus was struck by the symbolism of the moment, poised between his past and a future he'd never dared imagine. I'll think about it, he promised. As he walked home through the autumn evening, Marcus reflected on the strange, winding path that had led him here. From NFL star to homeless addict to coach and mentor, from alone to family, from lost to found, all because a homeless kid had claimed half his bench on a cold night in Lincoln Park. Some would call it chance, others might say divine intervention, but Marcus had come to see it as something simpler, a miracle. From alone to family, from lost to found, all because a homeless kid had claimed half his bench on a cold night in Lincoln Park. Some would call it chance, others might say divine intervention, but Marcus had come to see it as something simpler, a miracle. Not the flashy kind he'd been known for on the football field, but the quiet, everyday kind that happens when two broken people find healing in each other. It wasn't the life he'd dreamed of as a young athlete with the world at his feet. It was something better, something real. A life built not on fleeting glory or the next big win, but on connection, purpose, and the daily choice to be better than he was yesterday. As Marcus rounded the corner toward his apartment, his phone buzzed with a text from Darius. Don't forget, my game is at 4 tomorrow. Mom's bringing pizza after. Marcus smiled and typed his reply. Wouldn't miss it for the world. And he meant it, more than any promise he'd ever made.